Okay, so my options today for the spacer lift is either the Daystar 1.5 inch level kit, or I bought these 3/4 inch Daystar spacers for about $30 from Summit Racing. These are supposed to be the 1.5 inch level kit, but when you measure them, they come out to over 2 inches. So even if I took the other spacer off the stock truck and just used this solely, I'm still going to get like a 1.75 inches. I mean, this spacer is just way too much more than what I anticipated with this lift. So I'm going to use the 3/4 inch spacer, and let me explain why. So when you look at the truck, and a lot of times people were like, well, my truck sits level. I have a slight rake right here to the front, and the back I've measured from the wheel up to the gap here and the wheel up to the gap here. What I'm finding is that when you look at somebody's truck from the perspective of their lift, usually this is the part that draws the eye, because your eye's drawing it down the truck because it's so long. Well, here I am at 19 inches to the bottom, give or take, a little bit, and back here, because I'm trying to get this level, right? So here I'm more like 20.5. So I have an 1.5 inch difference. Well, if I put those 2 inch pucks in, I'm gonna be a 1/2 inch up front. And I originally thought that I was gonna get a lot of squat from my winch and from my winch bumper. But what happened was this bumper ended up being the same weight as the stock bumper. So it's 70 or 37 pounds, and then the stock bumper was like 35. So this negated any kind of weight difference. And then this ended up only weighing 60 pounds because I went with the synthetic line. So I thought I was gonna get a lot of squat in the front, but I don't. And essentially, if I lift this side, I also, because your pivot point is the tire, you're gonna get a little bit of lift back here as well. So then you start trying to anticipate that lift after you lift the front. Then you're gonna be at 1 inch, not just 1.5 inches back here, but 1.75 inches. So the larger puck probably would get me more level, but I think when you look at what people have done and they put that larger 1 to 2 inch lift in the front on top of the Mopar suspension, you get something that looks like it's gonna eat small dogs up here in this area. I mean, it just looks like a trophy truck where it's trying to jump everywhere it goes. So you get a squat in the rear. I'm gonna go with the 3/4 inch, and that's kind of my reasoning behind it. All right, so before I start, I've got the wheel pretty much lined up. Like, I know that I'm a little bit to the passenger side on this side of the wheel. And this wheel has just a little bit more sticking out from the center here. Maybe if we're looking at just this area, because the tires, the center of the tire comes up to here. If we're lined up the fender with the back to the front, I can see I have a little bit more over here. So the axle is a little bit to the passenger side versus this side. So I know when I raise it, it's gonna cause the problem even worse, because as you raise the truck, your track bar is gonna go from here down to the axle, is gonna raise just slightly. And as it does, it in essence shortens the bar because you're going to a longer distance this way. And so what I'm gonna have to do is extend my bar, which will further push this wheel and tire out. But since I'm favoring this side and I'm gonna put a spacer in here, the bar might actually end up being right where I need it to be. And now this track bar, is a rock crawler piece. It weighs 18 pounds versus the stock 8-pound piece. And as you can see, it's very large compared to my finger. It then goes down here and is adjustable at this end of the axle. So when I set it up the first time, I made it a little bit longer. That's where you adjust it there. I made it a little longer so that when I did raise it, it'll essentially pull the axle this direction, because you're taking away length. So as the bar goes up, the axle goes this way, ever so slightly. So it's just mechanics of it, and it goes this direction. So because I'm favoring this side, if I put a little bit more lift in this, which what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a spacer right there. And we're going to make today's video about installing spacers, whether it be stock or on a Mopar lift or any other suspension lift you have. This is how you install spacers on your Jeep. Okay, so now's a good time to kind of take a look at everything. We're gonna pull this off. You saw I got that spring, got the entire suspension down in about 10 minutes real time. I try to work fast to see if I can do that quick. So disconnected the shocks and disconnected the sway bar links, and these actually will get in the way. And a trick to this, if you're paying attention and you didn't fast forward through my video, these are why you stay for the tips. You can use, once you get the spring on, because you can't tighten this because the bolt is up under here, see where my finger's at, use a 4-inch C-clamp when the spring's on, and you'll set the C-clamp inside here and use the rubber ends you can get from Harbor Freight on the C-clamp, and you get them in the C-clamp section. C-clamp it on here, then you can tighten this bolt down here because it is incredibly tight. These are a pain to get on, but you can see once it's on there, that 2-inch bump stop is what you want. It'll protect your track bar from interfering with the axle in these places. And also, I have a Synergy that I'm going to put on here, and that also has to require a 2-inch bump stop. This is the 2.5-inch Mopar, but we're going to make it a 3-inch Mopar because we're going to put like a 1/4-inch spacer right there. Something you want to pay attention to whenever you're messing with the springs there's a seat right here where the end of the spring goes. Doesn't have to go up here. So if you're on top of this, you're gonna add another 1/2 inch of lift, but it's also gonna crush this whole thing. You wanna make sure it is sitting down in the proper seated area. Just pay attention to that. And you can see that's just a 3/4 inch spacer. If you put an 1 inch spacer in here, and you don't have more droop, and you don't disconnect more of your brake line, and really start to pay attention to where everything's connected, you will have a much greater difficult time getting an 1 inch or 2 inch spacer in here. So with a 2 inch lift, 2.5 inch lift from Mopar already on, and an additional spacer, it just gets more and more complicated without increasing the spring size or doing a dual rate where it's kind of tighter up here. So just some things to take note of. There's nothing wrong with the Mopar Lift. I love the shocks, I love the ride. I just need that little extra room to clear 37s and also to get the Jeep to sit more level. And that's what really our goal is today. All right, so that wraps up the install of the 3/4 inch spacer lift. It took a couple of days to put the video together to get kind of things going because I started on a Friday after work, and that went into a Saturday with working on a friend's Jeep, and then today is Sunday, so it didn't take that many days, but to make the video it did. But I just wanted to wrap that up by saying I'll include some pictures on here of like what you can see is the difference. It's minute, but if you look at a 3/4 inch spacer is going to make your Jeep look a little more level than I think anything bigger will, because the higher you raise the front, the eye catches the lines on this area of the Jeep, and to me it always looks like it's just too high in the front, especially with the Rubicon having the larger fenders. On the Sport it's not as noticeable, but a 3/4 inch spacer is going to level you visually. You may still have 3/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch of difference on either side, depending on the springs rate that you use. But with the Mopar Lift, I think 3/4 inch spacer is where you want to be to truly level the truck on either the Rubicon or the Sport. So that'll wrap this up. Click like and subscribe, and I'll have another video coming. I have some really in-depth suspension and steering fix for you. There's a lot to it, and I've pieced it over many months, doing some research and taking the time to get the parts that I needed so I can deliver those to you. So click that like and subscribe. That's the next video to come. Thanks, guys.